clapboard thing.
Do you want me to do it?
You actually got me.
Excellent.
Hey guys, welcome to my first podcast, Construct Strategically. Jan's with Andy, and I have my first guest ever, Alex. So Alex and I work on a confidential project,
Very
which we
confidential.
can't talk about, but we both work together on the same job, and I've
Yes.
known you for about 2 months now?
Yeah, just coming up to 2 months.
2 months,
absolutely.
2 months, yeah. So, Alex, mate, tell us about you. What do you do? And
Yeah. So I'm Alex Kate. I'm a quantity surveyor working for South-Based Construction. It's a main contractor based. We have offices in Christchurch, Auckland, Queenstown, and I believe Tauranga now.
Yeah, right.
So yes, I met yourself through working on a project. I mean, we can say it's a.
Can we?
Can we?
I don't think so. It's a confidential project.
Okay, right.
Let's stick to a confidential project.
Rewind.
these days. Yeah, that's all right.
A confidential project in Auckland, which is sort of for my company, is a major construction project.
The main contractor, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
So we're main contractors on the scheme. It's been quite interesting for me. There's quite a few new elements that you've brought to the table, Andy, in terms of the programming, cash flowing side of it, and integrating the two things together.
Yep.
Which was quite interesting, because I've never done it that way before.
Yep.
But it seems to be a really good way to do it.
And we've integrated the 3D model
Exactly,
into the
yes.
so it's
And
full
BIM.
4D planning.
Yes.
And mind you, this is the first time I've actually fully integrated
Yeah.
all 4 elements on any project, by the
Yeah,
way.
yeah.
Yeah. So this is a really cool experience for me too.
Oh, fantastic! Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, it's been good, and it's sort of things we've been talking about in construction
Yeah.
for years. And this is again for me the first time we've managed to actually do all those
Implement
things
it.
in terms of 4D planning, and
Yeah.
it's good to see kind of the benefits it brings to the project. I
Yeah,
would
yeah.
say.
Tell us a bit more about yourself, man.
I've been quantity surveying for probably about 7 or 8 years now. I'm from the UK, in case you didn't guess, from Manchester,
Yep.
and I came
Oh,
over to New
right.
Zealand about 2 and a bit years ago. 2.5
Just
years
before
ago.
COVID then?
Just before COVID.
Yeah, right.
So only just made it in by the skin of my teeth. But it's been a fantastic experience. I've learnt a lot from being here.
Yeah.
There's a lot of similarity, I think, in how things work in the UK.
How's that transition from the UK to the New Zealand construction industry? Are they very different?
No, you know, I was quite surprised at how similar they actually are.
Yeah, right.
There's a lot of, I think there's quite a few Brits in the construction industry in New Zealand. I don't know whether that's part of why it's so similar, but how projects operate is very much the same.
Yeah.
In terms of head contracts, subcontracts. It's very similar, to be honest. I didn't find it a particularly difficult transition. Learning how actual construction methodology and things like that is a bit different.
Yeah.
And learning how we do things out here. You know, one big example would be I never had to worry about seismic design or anything like that.
Oh,
in the
yes,
UK.
yes.
We very rarely have an earthquake.
Yep.
That's a completely new field for me
Yep.
to have to get involved in, which is very interesting.
Yeah.
But largely, I would say pretty similar in how they operate.
Yep.
And I haven't found it too difficult to transition.
No? What are the other major differences apart from seismic design, have you noticed, between the two industries?
I would say in New Zealand, there's certainly a shortage of labour and things like that.
Skilled resources?
Skilled resources, yeah,
Yes.
it's difficult. I mean,
Yeah.
the people that I hire are brilliant. It's just there's not enough for them, especially with the
Exactly.
borders being shut for 2 years. So
Yeah, yeah.
that's definitely been a challenge over the last couple of years.
Yeah.
And obviously being located out in the Pacific,
Yeah.
securing of material and the procurement of particularly anything that comes from abroad
Yeah.
has been challenging.
Yeah, it's interesting. We were talking earlier, and we were talking about the exact same thing.
Yeah.
About New Zealand having big kind of skill resource shortages.
Yeah.
For the amount of work we want to deploy.
Yes.
I don't think we have enough people. What do you think we can do about it? What are your ideas? What do you?
I think there's a few elements to it. I think working smarter is one of them, and looking at how we work.
Yeah.
And how we can best use the resource that we do have.
Yeah.
More efficiently. I think as well, I would hope that things will start to ease a bit as the borders open up a bit and we can get more people in. But
Do you think so?
Maybe. It's certainly been a trial for us,
Yeah.
sorting visas and things out, but we're pretty much there now, which is good.
Yeah.
But I think the main thing is about looking at how we can make things more efficient
100%.
and use the resource we've got. And
Yeah.
I think 4D, been modelling all of that, how we plan our work and our resources, is all part of that.
Yeah, digitalization of construction, isn't it?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Do you have any ideas for digitalization of construction? Anything you're working on that you're willing to share?
Well, I think the main thing that I take away so far from working is the earlier we get involved, get someone like yourself involved, the better.
Yep.
And I think we should be looking to procure all our work with the focus being on the 4D.
Yep.
Because when we have the cost information from our supply chain
Yes.
in the format that matches how we intend to use it in the 4D realm,
Yep.
it goes a lot smoother. So, for example, we've done a cost-loaded program through P6, I believe,
Yes.
which was great. It took us a bit of time to get the information extracted in order to populate that cash flow.
And mind you, that's the first time we were doing it. So.
Exactly, the very first. So it's always going to be interesting when you do it for the first time. But I think if we can really bring the subcontracts and the obviously we're head contractor, but if we can bring the supply chain, and get them to buy into that process as well, then the whole process will be a lot smoother.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. So, just for everybody's benefit of listening, can you tell us what your views of 4D are? What's your perspective of 4D? Because I've heard a lot of people talk about 4D, 12D, 8D, right? As all, obviously it's dimensions, 100%. But from your perspective, what do you believe the 4 dimensions are that are key to delivering a successful construction project?
When you say, so for me, the good thing about the 4D is that not only can we track, not only does it take away a lot of the previous sort of churn, I guess, the sort of measurement side of surveying, completely streamlines that and makes it easier. You're integrating the program with it, so we can.
So that's time. That's the first dimension. Yep.
Time, cost, quality as well. We can use it to track our QA and things like that.
Design.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and I think also from my perspective, I think it's also people.
Yeah.
You got to hold people.
Yes.
To deliver a set section of work on time to a set budget and give them a proper design, show them what good looks like, what you're delivering.
Yeah.
But without people, you're not going to do anything, are you?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And obviously the good thing as well, it allows us to properly plan out our resources, in terms of our team, utilise them
100%.
in the best way.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of the guesswork and the and the
It's data-driven.
inefficiency out of things.
Yeah.
So that's, I guess, the next step.
Yeah.
All that information integrated in a way that can be utilised. Which is what we're working towards.
That's it. That's it. No, it's actually been a really, really exciting journey, to be honest.
Yeah.
So I've been having a lot of fun on that job. Trust me.
Yeah. No. Absolutely.
Yeah.
We're only 2 months in, so
only 2 months in, and here we are. We have a fully integrated, cost-loaded, design integrated program, which is model integrated program, which is awesome. Yeah. All right, man. So, what does a day in a life of a quantity surveyor entail? What do you do?
No, it's to be honest, quite a few things really. I mean, so early stages on the project, we're mainly concerned with the procurement of all the sub-trades and supply chain and that sort of thing. That's on the project we're currently working on together. That's mainly been my focus. On top of that, it's management of relationships with the client, subcontractors, making sure the subcontractors' payments are processed, valuing change, variations.
Mine too.
Absolutely, all things that kind of 4D sort of helps with, I guess.
100%.
And just kind of the day-to-day, really.
Yeah.
Just managing relationships in the supply chain.
Yep.
And obviously upstream, we do a lot of reporting to our client. Part of our client's requirements under the head contract is to produce a cost-loaded program. So constantly providing updates on the cash flow, that sort of thing. So let's say hypothetically I was a young graduate coming out of university, right? Yeah.
And I wanted to become a quantity surveyor. What's the one bit of advice you'd give me?
The one piece of advice I would give you is get involved and try and get some on-site experience. there's a lot of companies that are desperate for people to come in.
Yes, 100%.
And I think if you can, go and get some experience at a company, maybe in parallel to doing your degree, a lot of companies will take the opportunity to take you on.
Yeah,
and
that's
I
good
think that
advice.
would give you an edge over most people who are graduating from university.
Yep.
And perhaps not with any industry experience.
Yeah.
I think if you can get involved and have that and just really apply yourself, put
Yeah.
yourself out there, then I think you'll go far. That would be my advice personally.
100%, man. That's solid advice.
Yeah.
Like, you got to get out there.
Yeah,
to,
exactly.
kind of get the experience done, yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it's really interesting, right? So you've got the perspective of the UK and the New Zealand market.
Yes.
Right? So what kind of contracts do construction companies use in the UK? Is it FIDIC? Is it, I don't know.
To be honest,
I've never worked in the UK, so.
So I'm aware of FIDIC. I've never actually seen it used in the UK. I'm not saying
Right.
it isn't, but it's very minimal if it is.
Yeah.
Mainly, in my experience, we use a suite of contracts called the JCT suite.
Yeah.
It's very similar to the NZS 3910,
Yeah.
3916, depending on which option you go for. So they're actually they're a little more legalistically written, I would
Yeah.
say, but they're substantially similar to what we've got in New Zealand. They do have something called the NEC form of contract.
NEC, yes.
which I've not-
New engineering contracts.
That's right, yeah. I've never personally used the NEC. It's mainly used for very sort of big infrastructure projects where you've got a lot of, I guess, data and things like that to manage.
Yeah.
But as I understand it, it's quite a collaborative way of working between the client, contractor, subcontractors.
Yeah.
And most feedback I've heard on it is that it's quite good.
It's quite, I've personally heard NEC is great as well.
Yeah.
I've actually done a little bit of research on NECs and just try to understand the NEC and the Institute of Civil Engineers, the ICE.
Yeah, that's it.
Have you heard of Project 13?
Project 30?
13, no, Project 13.
No, I'm not sure. I've heard of
So
that.
it's an interesting formal contract type, which focuses on construction digitalization.
Yeah.
It's been written by the Institute of Civil Engineers in the UK.
Right.
You should Google it, totally.
I will.
I will. For anybody else that's listening,
yeah.
you should Google it too. It's they've actually got some white papers on on how risk is shared between subcontractors and main contractors.
Yeah.
And the process of risk management.
Yeah.
Through construction digitalization.
Yes.
Which is beautiful. It's a good read. If you like reading contracts, it's a
Yeah,
good
yeah,
read.
no.
And it's your job to read
as a
contracts.
QS,
Yeah.
No, absolutely. I'll have to check that. Well, I mean,
Yeah.
I'm currently working through my RICS, so it's
Yes.
good CPD for me.
Yeah.
So I'll check that out.
We might put a link to Project 13 down below on the podcast as well. So we'll chuck it in the description.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but more interestingly, how different is NZ 3910 to the contracts that you're used to working? What are the major differences that you see?
I'll be honest. They're largely the same. The JCT, I would probably say, is a little bit more prescriptive.
Yes.
In terms of rules for, say, assessing variations and things like that. Effectively, it's the same. From what I've seen, the NZS is a little more streamlined. In terms of allocation of risk,
Yes,
again,
that's really important.
they're fairly similar in that they tend to push risk down to the contractor, at least in the design and build kind of realm, as opposed to something like NEC, which has more of a shared
risk portfolios.
which is the kind of philosophy behind it.
Yeah.
But largely they're quite similar, to be honest.
And what challenges have you had working with NZ310? I know it's up for revision pretty soon, and there's a whole committee working behind a revision for NZ310. But I'll be interested to see what comes out. But I want your perspective on what challenges you're facing. You deal with the contract day to day.
Yeah.
You know multiple subcontractors with the client and the head contract, and you see both sides. If you will, I mean, more than I do in my job as a planner.
Yeah.
You will. So what are the real challenges you face?
No huge challenges as yet. I mean, the main one that we had was around COVID, around the original.
Yes.
COVID, and whether that was there was a bit of a debate at the time as to whether that was a variation with entitlement to costs for their contractor. That's something that's sort of gone back and forth, and there's been government advice on that, which has helped us come to a resolution with our clients. But really, in terms of, I've not had any sort of major issues with it. Kind of the way that the projects I've worked on so far, they've all been, what's the term? So, as a company, we've always had early contractor involvement in the projects,
Yes.
which has let
ECI.
us sort of manage our risk
Yeah.
and share the risk in a way with the client. So it's worked out quite well for us in that extent. Obviously, the risk is best placed with who's best able to control it.
Yeah. It's an interesting way of looking at it.
Yeah. So I mean, most of we've recently finishing up another project in Auckland, which is sort of a major. It's like a lab complex for one of the universities in Auckland, and it was kind of all the subtrades were open book procurement with the client, which was quite good. It let us kind of demonstrate good value to the client, and it enabled us to price out the risks. That we had sort of transparently with the client.
Oh, cool.
Which
doesn't happen very often, though, does it?
No, it doesn't. But I think that's the way things are going. Which is good for the whole industry. And supply chain. I mean, obviously the alternative to place all the risk with the head contractor. It's probably something we're trying to move away from.
I mean, I guess we'll have to avoid a situation like Armstrong Downs, which kind of broke my heart recently.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I mean, so how do we stop that from happening? How do we, from your perspective, you could do one thing differently to help make sure subbies don't go broke ever, because you know when a subby goes broke, it's bad for the industry.
No, of course. I think it's about a degree of risk sharing between the parties, the key stakeholders to the project. It's about obviously when you procure your subcontract packages, making sure that you are getting the right people there, that they've made the right allowances, and really interrogating the costs that you receive.
So
make sure that obviously that everything's been considered, and there's obviously not huge scope gaps and things like that, which can put everything in jeopardy. And as you say, it's about risk sharing and placing the risk with the people who are best able to manage it, and not just passing it down.
That's an amazing view. So hypothetically, right? So you work for a main contractor. You understand your risks with the client. Cool. You price those risks out. How do you then help the subcontractor understand and manage the risks that you have identified? Or help the subcontractor manage risks that aren't identified? How does that chain work from that point downstream? Is what I'm asking.
Sure. So when we sort of procured the jobs I worked on in New Zealand, we do it on sort of kind of an open book with the client on most of the sub-trades.
But you're not going to have an open book with the subby, though, are you?
Potentially, we will include allowances for identified risks and develop a methodology through a risk management process on how we manage them. So generally, we've made allowances to cover risk, and our subcontracts are fairly clearly written in terms of who is responsible for managing any identified risk.
In NZ3910, is it clearly prescriptive in NZ3910?
I guess it would depend. And we obviously have an amended suite of
contracts. So some of the problems I've had with NZ3910 is quite open to interpretation. Depending on who the party is. But I guess it was written in 2013, so it's a while ago.
Exactly.
And it's actually quite open. It's it's like fairly, what's fair to a main contractor, it's not necessarily fair to a subcontractor. You know what I mean? Depends on the situation you were in. Which I've always found quite interesting.
I mean, I guess an example would be recently on the project we're working on, we have a piler on site. Obviously, there's a risk of ground condition risk.
Oh, 100%. So it's a massive risk on any job.
So we've sat down with them. We've come up with a figure that we think is a reasonable risk figure. We've included that in our kind of open book pricing to the client. So we have an allowance in there, which is basically a provisional sum. We're not in a position to control that ground risk. We've got a realistic allowance, which is passed through from the subcontract into our trade with the head contract, and that's a risk that we're managing as we go through for any risk associated with the pile. So That's generally what we try and do, is make sure everybody, so we're covered, and we have a route of recovery under the head contract.
Yeah, right.
But that we are transparent with what we believe the risks are.
Yeah.
And we have a methodology for controlling them, and
100%.
managing them.
Yep.
And a method of sort of managing that with the client as well. So.
Yeah. Interesting. All right, man. Can we talk a little bit about construction digitalization? That's something
Yeah.
I'm really passionate about. Right.
Absolutely.
I'm really passionate about construction digitalization, doing things smarter, faster, better.
Yeah.
Every day. Right. What are your views on that? Oh, before that, do you actually want to be a...
Yeah, I will have a... Actually, I have one of those stuck here.
Oh, that looks good.
DFA. Very nice. So construction digitalization.
Cheers, man, and thank you for being my first guest.
Thank you very much. Yeah,
Appreciate
it's
it.
lovely to be here, Andy. Yeah, absolutely. So construction digitalization is quite a big topic.
I know it's a massive topic, but
so from my experience, in particularly with surveying, there's possibly sometimes a little unease about eliminating our own, making ourselves redundant.
But you never will, though.
I don't believe that's the case, to be honest.
Yeah.
Most of the construction digitalization I've been a part of, like working with you guys, it's purely about making things easier.
Yep.
You still need the expertise.
It's not about making it redundant. Don't worry.
No, exactly. No, I know. I hope not. Things like doing a cash flow, which would take months and months and months and months. Well, it would take months and months, but it would take a very long time to do a proper full cash flow for that size of project. You can do quite quickly and easily. You still need to have the expertise to understand how you actually generate that cash flow. But it just makes things quicker, more efficient,
100%. Yep.
and less error prone. I would say more accurate.
Reliable data. That's for sure. What else is there? Are there any innovations that you would want to work on, given unlimited time, unlimited resources? Where do you think we can do things smarter, faster, better from what we're currently doing?
So I think a fully cost-loaded model would be a great thing to introduce. It would make it a lot easier to, say, track progress and things on site.
Yeah.
Quickly work out, say, valuing change is a big thing, what we do. Any variations and things like that would be a lot quicker if we just pull that from the model.
Yep.
Would be a huge thing.
You can pull it from the program today.
Yeah, we could. We could definitely do that for the program. Yeah, absolutely.
But I just had a crazy thought. It's just as you said that.
Yeah.
Imagine if we could have a model and we could load cost onto the model, but have a heat map to where your variations have gone.
Yeah, absolutely.
You rotate the model and you can see a heat map of variations.
Yeah.
You can see where your problem areas have been. I bet you it'll be in the ground.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, one thing that's awesome that we've trialed on other projects, we have kind of like point cloud lasers.
Yes,
that
yeah,
we literally
point
use
clouds.
to track the progress of individual rooms in the building.
Yep.
And we can use that to assess our progress claims.
Yep.
Claim up to the client, claim down.
Yep.
So our assessment of the subcontractor progress claims. So that sort of thing's awesome.
Yeah. Exactly. Point clouds. You brought up point clouds.
Yeah.
So I've always had this crazy thought. I've spoken to a couple of companies about it as well. So why can't we actually link an entire point cloud scan back into a P6 program?
Yeah.
To auto update the program and link that back into your costing system to integrate the costs. Oh my God, the world would be such a better place.
Yeah, I mean that would be a huge help. I mean the thing is, there's so many different streams of data. If you could, as we kind of integrate it all, it kind of it becomes a better tool the more that you can put into it, I think.
Yeah.
We're even doing things like now we've got a drone on site. We can use that thing, can literally do our site cut and fill topography and work out all our volumes for all our cut and fill.
Yeah.
Which is just awesome. Which is something that would be a real pain to do. You can pull it up in a few minutes off the drone.
Exactly,
which is brilliant. So
anything else you'd want to work on?
That
you always thought could do with a bit of improvement.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing you could integrate it into is obviously your tendering. So I mean, literally, if you could just pull out your model and just send the whole scope, digitally to the subcontractors for tendering.
Yeah.
And just integrate all of that into that whole process and the program, that would be a huge help as well.
Yeah, I don't think we're far off that, to be honest.
No.
Yeah, well, look how far we come in just 2 months.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I mean, I have one final question for you. All right. From your perspective, what's more important to you, time or money?
I would say that it's not necessarily either. I think it's about delivering the project to a high quality, on time.
So time then.
And on budget. I think they're all
It's a
equally
time
important.
and money then.
Yeah, I think it's all of them. I don't think you can prioritise one over the other as such.
So you're a QS and you're not gonna.
I'm not going to. Well, it's all right. I mean, listen. I mean, you can deliver something under budget, but there's a bad product. I mean, or you could deliver something early that's full of defects. You know, it's not.
It's going to cost you shit.
I don't think there's one over the other that is the most important. I think the important thing is you have to achieve all three. Quality, time, and cost.
Yeah.
That would be my take on it, anyway.
Yeah, interesting. Do you have any questions for me?
Well, what do you think the next big thing is, Andy? What do you think is going to be the next?
Next big.
Yeah.
So I've always described project controls, or part of what I do is, I've always considered that I'm a mini Google, right? So I've said this before. Imagine if Google told you it was going to take you 30 minutes to come to my house every day at 4 p.m.
Yeah.
Would you care?
Probably not. I don't know.
Just pushing irrelevant information to you at an irrelevant point in time, right? So for me, you'd only care if Google told you it's going to take you 20 minutes to get to your house and there's 5 minutes of traffic every day at 5 p.m. You'd really care. So it's relevant information at a relevant point in time. So project controls for me is all about that. It's about how do I get the right information to the right person at the right time to enable a data-driven decision. So it's like we've been talking about, the whole 4D stuff and more, integrating all of that data to help people make data-driven decisions is where I see the future, where you can get most value for where you can put your efforts into. And that's something I'm really passionate about. And let that be, for example, if you do a costing sheet, and that's misaligned with how the work breakdown structure in the program is written, we have a problem there, don't we? Because you and I aren't talking the same language. And think about the guy on site, the main construction guy on site, has written his methodology completely differently to how the program's written and how the costing's done. You don't have interrelatability of data. The minute you don't have interrelatability of data, what happens is you're not making data-driven decisions anymore. You're making a lot of emotionally driven decisions. And we all know where that leads us.
Absolutely. I think it goes back to what we were saying at the start. It's about bringing all the different pieces together.
100%. It comes back to that. And that's why for strategic planning, when I was starting the company, I said, I need one thing to focus on. What's that one thing I will focus on to add value? And that's when I kind of came up with this whole diamond drawing, integrating the work breakdown structure, the cost, the people. Like I said, they are the most important thing. And the design. Obviously quality and health and safety, subsets of all of that. But you do the 4 things properly, you won't have a problem with quality, you won't have a problem with health and safety. I mean, you'll have to manage issues, but you won't have to manage problems. So, I think that's the next big thing, is all of us talking the same language.
I think that makes a lot of sense. Absolutely.
And something I'm striving for. See how we get there.
Yeah.
Hey, Alex, thank you so much for being here, mate. I really appreciate it.
No, thank you, Andy. Yeah, it's been good.
And
really good.
you're literally my first guest, and really appreciate you taking the time coming on my podcast as a first guest.
No problem at all.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Cheers.